Hello, everybody. Welcome to an episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. And in fact, this is the 50th episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. And hey, I have a wonderful guest for episode number 50. It is Colin from Colin's Corner. Hello, Colin. How are you?
I am doing awesome this afternoon, Philip, and thank you so much for inviting me. I've been watching these for a while, and it'll be nice to actually chat with you in person instead of behind comment sections and Twitter feeds.
Yes, yeah, there is something special about chatting with somebody when you've been watching their videos and you think, hey, that seems like a really nice guy. I'd like to chat with that person. And so here we are. I get to chat with you today. And we are, this is kind of exciting times, I feel like, on YouTube, and at least our little corner of YouTube. I feel like there's a lot of new and interesting channels, a lot of new energy. I don't know. I'm not exactly a veteran. I've only been doing this for almost 4 years myself, but I just feel like there's a lot of new people bringing some great innovations and some wonderful stuff and some just, bright personalities. And I think you're one of those people. You started your channel in 2023, is that right?
Yeah, it's almost been a full year. It's January 28th. Last year was the release of my first video, so we're coming up on 1 year.
All right. Well, we're gonna have a 1 year anniversary for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do the booktube birthday tag or whatever that thing is that people do sometimes?
I don't really know. I envy people that have the ability to plan out weeks in advance what their
Wow.
videos are going to be because
Yeah.
I am not. Maybe at any given point I have 1 to 2 videos planned, but
Yeah.
I kind of just fly by the seat of my pants. Like I'll do the TBRs and the wrap ups, and if I feel like reviewing a book, then I do. If I feel like doing something different, then I do. I just
Uh-huh.
kind of roll with it. So I'd like to do something
Cool. Cool. Well, you
for the
are
1 year.
a booktube pantser then. That's good to know. Yes. So, so I am I'm going to launch us off with my standard question, which is going on the premise that you are what you read. Colin, please tell us about some of the most important formative reads that you have encountered over the years and that maybe could help us explain why you're here on this platform doing what you're doing. So starting back with little Colin, back in the day, what are some of the books and stories that you remember?
Okay, so back in the day at I'll start like elementary school when we had the Scholastic book fairs.
Oh yeah.
Um, I remember picking up a book, and this is the first book I remember becoming absolutely obsessed with and knew it inside and out. There was this book about a guy that got attacked by a shark. His name was Rodney something, and he was like a spear fisherman, and it was one of those like educational books like about sharks, but it was just like this happened to this guy, but doesn't usually happen type of thing. And I remember just being amazed by like the story because it went through his spearfishing tournament and he was dragging his fish behind him and he just got like blindsided by a shark. And so that was the very first book like I remember being 100% obsessed with. And kind of showed me like what storytelling could be in a very basic way. But I will give a shout out to my education or my elementary school librarian who really helped spark my love of reading. And the first series of books that I really fell in love with was actually the series of Unfortunate Events
Ah, okay.
by Lemony Snicket.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I attribute that series of books to being a large contributor to my sense of humor today as well.
You are famous
Um,
for your comedy on your channel. You start every video with a joke, and you let us guess the answer, and then the next video you answer the joke. And I think that is a unique feature of Colin's Corner. I don't know anyone else who does that.
Yeah,
And
I just wanted to figure out a way to incorporate silly little dad jokes because I tell
yeah,
them all the time.
yeah. Well, that's good. That I mean, I'm all for dad jokes. I think everyone who's been watching my channel knows that I'm a fan of dad jokes. So that's awesome. So
It's hard not to be.
yeah. So that goes way back, your sense of
But
humor.
yeah, I think especially with that series, I think that my like elementary school librarian had read like parts of the first series of unfortunate events book with us, and I immediately like wanted to check it out. And she kind of stoked those flames for me. Like she would check in every time I had library, are you reading that? And would ask me when I wanted the next one. And so I remember collecting those books, and I don't think I actually like read the full series until I got a little bit older.
Uh-huh.
But that was the first chapter book series where I felt I kind of autonomously was interested in it and read it, and it was my thing, not something I was reading with my parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gave me those senses of accomplishment and finishing the book and waiting for the next one and stuff like that.
Huh.
So that was the first big chapter book series that I really got hooked on and like couldn't put down, was waiting for the next ones to come out type of thing. Like the way they looked on the shelf, all of that.
Yeah, all the series together. Now that is a series that I'd never read for whatever reason. I did read other things with my daughters, but I do remember my daughters reading a series of unfortunate events, and I would peek at the book sometimes, and I got the impression that it was a rather depressing series in some ways. These kids go through a lot, I think, in the course of these. I mean, it is aptly named Unfortunate Events.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And Lemony Snicket tells you that in the
Yeah.
beginnings of books, like when he's setting the plot up, he'll be like, "You probably want this to happen. I'll tell you right now, if you want that to happen, to close the pages of this book, because that's not what's going to happen."
Yeah, at the same time, there's some comedy in all of this unfortunate stuff going on. And that's something I find interesting that, and this was a favorite series of yours, and I find that tragedy and comedy of that sort often in some of the greatest reads really do go together. I mean, look at Shakespeare, and every tragedy of Shakespeare's, there's some comedy as well, as in stuff done for laughs. And sometimes it's very low comedy at that. So I wonder if that helped to set up your kind of sensibilities and expectations for story reading. Do you find yourself drawn to books that have a kind of a bit of a darkness to them, but at the same time, there's a comedic side to all that. Is that something that you think is part of your literary makeup?
I think so too. That's why I think I attribute this book, like I said, a lot to my sense of humor, but it also showed me, in these dark situations that these unfortunate sibling orphans go through in every single book, there are tons of moments where they're able to laugh with one another and just kind of be resourceful and get through the situation and make the best of it. And a lot of the authors that I now love today are able to do that, and it makes the characters to me feel more human.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Nothing is 100% dire all the time. There's
yeah.
always moments of funny little things happen when you get to know people really well, and inside jokes and stuff like that make it feel more real to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. And there are certain series like you're reading Malazan now. We'll talk about that later. We have to get through your journey first, but you are reading Malazan. I think of that as one of my primary examples of a series where there's all kinds of tragedy, but there's also humor, and thank goodness for that humor, that special Malazan humor in there. So, but anyway, back to your journey. I'm sure it doesn't stop with a series of unfortunate events.
It doesn't. My reading was pretty heavy on, I would say, maybe till about like seventh, eighth grade, where I kind of fell into the reading isn't as cool, and I had sports and other things that I deemed more important at the time than reading. But before that, I am not unique in that I was born in 1994, so I grew up during the insane mania of Harry Potter.
Okay.
And that's the last series I remember because it's just not like this anymore. pre-ordering the books and
Yeah.
waiting to get them or waiting for them to ship in the mail and just needing to know what the next thing Harry was going to get into was. So I remember having these old battered paperback copies that I would like drag with me everywhere over the summer. We had a little trailer and we belonged to this trailer park that was kind of like this pseudo camping thing where it wasn't really hardcore camping, but there was like a fire pit and they had a little congregation hall. And so we would go up there on weekends. And I just remember bringing like covers were torn off of these books, but I was lugging them with me everywhere around this campground and just reading Harry Potter by the firelight. And really fond memories of the Harry Potter books. So that was a big part of my definitely formative reading in terms of fantasy, because I think it was the first real fantasy series that I had read.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Well, I was starting my master's degree in 94, so I didn't get to read Harry Potter as a kid, but I did read it along with my daughters, and that was fun. And so I got to experience the joy vicariously in a way, But yeah, it's a series that has, I think, just about everybody I've talked to on, for Dear Dr. Fantasy, who is anywhere close to your age, just about everybody. Not so many people have mentioned a series of unfortunate events, actually. I'm trying to think back if anyone has. You might be the first. But somebody's gonna say, wait, no, I mentioned it probably. But anyway, yeah, the Harry Potter absolutely just has left an imprint on your generation. I know that
Yeah.
well. I know that well. And that's pretty special. I get the closest thing probably for me was the Star Wars original trilogy. That was probably,
Okay.
the Harry Potter equivalent of my generation, I would say. And but there's even that I think doesn't come quite as close as what Harry Potter was because you had the books and you had the later the movies and the theme parks and all, it's
It's
just
crazy.
yeah, it's quite a cultural phenomenon. So do you think the Harry Potter books are then why fantasy is probably, would you say fantasy is your favorite genre?
I'd say so now, and that's probably primarily because since returning to reading, it's been the genre that I've read the most, um,
Uh-huh.
excluding, I suppose, Stephen King, who is my most widely read author, but
Uh-huh.
he even led me to fantasy. And so, part of this journey that I'm on specifically this year is going to be to, although I love fantasy, try to branch out into some more sci-fi and some other genres, like dig deeper into horror because I really enjoy horror.
Uh-huh.
But I have some plans to get into some sci-fi because I feel like it's a bit neglected by me a
Uh-huh.
bit. I've read some fun sci-fi books, like I read Blake Crouch's Dark Matter, and that was a fun like sci-fi thriller, but I like to dig my, teeth into maybe The Expanse. I'm gonna start that this year and Red Rising.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, I
Because I
had
feel
my
like I've
eye.
been just go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I had my eyes on Sun Eater myself for sci-fi
Okay.
this year. I am Dr. Fantasy, but occasionally I dabble in sci-fi. So but yeah, that's fantastic. So fantasy, the bug got you with the Harry Potter stuff, and you said that you stopped around seventh grade or so. What brought you back into reading? What happened?
So I read voraciously when I was younger, like I mentioned, and my mom was always a reader of fiction. Like she always had, you know, dust covers halfway through books laying around the house, and she always brought books on vacation. So I always saw her reading, and I don't know, it always just was in the back of my mind. Like I've been an enjoyer of stories, I think always,
Yeah.
of any kind. Stories that impact me. And I don't know why I fell away from reading, and sparsely I would pick up a book. Like I think I read The Hobbit in high school, but didn't continue with the trilogy. And there was this one thriller book that I had read that I read in maybe 4 or 5 days, and my mom was like amazed. And she actually emailed the author of the book and
Oh
said,
wow.
I haven't been able. to like see my son reading in years, and he was swept away by and he answered her. So I was like, whoa, that was really cool.
Ah,
Um,
that is cool. Yeah.
but so this was about, I want to say 3 years ago now. It was, yeah, it was 2021. We were on a family vacation to a place we go every single year. We go to Rehoboth Beach. And there's this bookstore that has always kind of just been sentimental. Like we stop in there every year, no matter if we need books or not. And I happened to pick up 11/22/63. I
Ah,
don't know why. The cover drew me in. It was a massive book. I wasn't even reading at the time, so I don't know why I picked up this 800-page tome, but I read it, and that led me to realize why I loved reading again, if that makes sense. I
it
got
does.
swept away totally by the story and started digging on the internet, and that's how I found Mike. Mike was one of the very first channels I found, and
Okay.
I was just like, I need more Stephen King.
That's fantastic. Wow.
So
So it's
that
Stephen
brought me
King.
back to reading as an adult.
Wow, that is so cool. So it's Stephen King we can thank. Now, I'm not a constant reader. I can't claim to be a Stephen King fan, but one of the things I'm really happy I did for my channel was I read the Dark Tower series because I never thought of myself as really a horror reader, and I've always thought of King as more or less a horror writer. But there is this Dark Tower series, which, you can call it anything you want, probably. I think of it as sort of kind of fantasy. It's got a lot of
Yeah.
science fiction in it. It's got a lot of horror elements. It's got a lot of just whatever. It is one of the most difficult series to categorize that you can think of, I think. But let's call it fantasy just for the heck of it. And I read it and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved getting to know Stephen King's voice as a writer. And you can see a range there because he did write The Gunslinger much earlier than he wrote The Dark Tower, the last book in the series. You can see him, maturing and the different things. And then there are certain threads that connect it all the way through, of course. And it's really quite a series. I put it in my top 10 series now of fantasy because I loved it that much. And I should probably read more Stephen King as a result. But I think I'm coming at his writing in a very different direction from most people. I'm guessing most people would have read, one of his probably like 11/22/63 or The Stand or Pet Cemetery or something. And then maybe at some point thought maybe I should try this Dark Tower thing. So yeah, and there are even people who are of the opinion that you shouldn't read Dark Tower until you've read certain other books that are linked, let's say. What do you think about all that?
I tend to hesitate with that type of talk because you've read The Dark Tower and you've not read a lot of other Stephen King. And I
I haven't read
think,
any other Stephen King. Yeah.
yes, so I think it's rather, and I don't think that anybody that says this is intentionally trying to come off this way, but
No.
I personally feel like it's a little gatekeepy to
Uh-huh.
try to say you need to read this other stuff in order. You don't need to read anything else to fully enjoy The Dark Tower.
I don't think so
Just
because I
like a
loved it.
fan
Yeah.
of any other author, yeah, I mean, if you do already enjoy reading Stephen King and have widely read many of his other works, you'll get the added benefit of understanding some Easter eggs, but there is no necessity to read anything else to understand the plot of The Dark Tower and enjoy it for what it is.
Right. As much as
It's
anyone
just an
can.
added benefit, in my opinion.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
much as anyone can understand the plot of the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I owe The Dark Tower a great debt because really my journey to discover more Stephen King is what led me to eventually finding some of Mike's Dark Tower videos
Yeah.
and realizing that Stephen King had written a fantasy series. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. So I did this crazy one of those crazy lists where you read all the ancillary works about the Dark Tower while you're also reading the Dark Tower.
Yep.
and it was designed by a guy named Jaime and Fuego from the
Oh
Horror
yeah.
Show. It's a
Yeah,
YouTube channel.
I
Yeah.
don't know him, but I've seen him through Mike. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Mike's a big fan of his, and maybe is the reason I got turned on to him. But he had this 19 book series and self-imposed, need to read widely. I just went. I wanted to read more King anyways. So it was kind of killing two birds with one stone because I was reading The Stand, It, Insomnia, some other things that were related to the Tower, while I also read the Tower, and I realized if this is fantasy, although it's kind of a strange fantasy, I think I really enjoy this.
Ah,
So then I found Jimmy. Jimmy was one of the second channels I found,
yep.
and he was a big fantasy fan. So he opened my world to the many fantasy series that I was unaware of. And I started finding other channels such as, yours and many others in the process, Alan. But I think I've finally found my niche in the fantasy sci-fi genre because I seem to keep finding hit after hit for the most part.
Cool. Then, and what made you say, all right, I'm gonna start a channel? Obviously, these series resonated with you, and you had the unlike me, because I did not know anything about booktube when I started a channel. I knew nothing. I just wanted to start a YouTube channel about fantasy because I was teaching a fantasy novels class, and I thought it would be a nice supplement to that. And I actually wondered, gee, I wonder, has anyone ever created a YouTube channel about fantasy books? And of course, I found out, oh yes, there are millions of people out there who do this sort of thing. But yeah, I didn't know a thing. But what made you say, yeah, I love what Mike is doing. I love what Jimmy's doing. I love what Alan's doing. I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. What tipped you into doing this?
I kind of had the idea simmering on the back burner for a while,
Uh-huh.
and the main reason that I stopped myself from doing it for probably like a year and a half, I thought about it, was that I didn't want to start a channel and then have a recent refound hobby in reading feel like a chore.
Uh-huh.
Because I knew that it would be a lot of work to make videos, learn how to edit them. There's a learning curve for that, even though I do like the bare minimum and that type of stuff. But um, I didn't want to become resentful of reading or
Right.
feel like I had to read or read certain books because I had a channel. And ultimately I decided to do it because I was involved in some discords, and I think I was in your comment section, Jimmy's. I had gotten to know some people or be familiar with people in comment sections, and nobody in my life at the time that I was friends with was reading what I was reading. So in
Yeah.
that sense, I feel like I'm pretty similar to other booktubers, and I just wanted to discuss what I was reading with more people.
Yeah.
And I thought the idea of building a little community would be fun, and putting myself out there and getting out of my comfort zone was a big part of it. And also, I am in school right now to become an elementary school teacher, and I figured it would be good practice for me to
Oh yeah.
be able to consume something, order my thoughts around it, and convey it to the void, whatever it may be, but just to kind of become a better speaker and be more comfortable speaking in front of people, for lack of a
Yeah.
better way to put it.
Yeah.
So all of that just kind of added up, and I was like, you know what? I set my phone up one day. I bought a little like $10 tripod at Walmart, and I set my phone up and I recorded my intro video.
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. And I have found that having a YouTube channel is a wonderful way to enhance my teaching. I will say that. So I hope that you'll find something similar. And you said you're going to be an elementary school teacher soon. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. I still have probably 3 years in total left because I'm only part-time. So I'm chipping away at it.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's a wonderful goal. Yeah, I wish you the best with that. Yeah. I'm
Thanks.
pretty certain you're going to be an inspiring teacher as well. So yeah.
I hope so.
So you didn't have a video the other day that I watched where you did talk about a kind of I don't know if you would call it burnout, but you were worried about feeling that you just alluded to, I think, a moment ago, the idea that, oh, this is beginning to become a chore, and I'm not reading for pleasure. I'm reading because I have some, artificial goal that I have imposed on myself, and I got to finish this many books a month, or I'm not a real booktuber or whatever. And I don't think you fell into that. I think you realized I want to keep this fun, right? So how do you plan to keep this fun? And what you mentioned, this is the thing you do to be in conversation with people. And it is tempting, I will say, as someone who is definitely overextended myself. It is tempting because you hear about this series. Oh, I want to read that. And you have all these lovely people who are like, yeah, let's do a buddy read. And then, oh, what about this other thing over here? Oh, I'm like a kid in a candy store and I can't say no because I do want to read all these things and I do want to hang out with all these wonderful people. But I don't have time to do that. And the fact is, as you said, making videos takes time away from reading. It's ironic. Becoming a booktuber actually means less reading time in a way. Or you take time away from other things in your life, So what do you think is the right path for somebody who's looking for this to be a fun thing and to keep it fun?
That's a great question. And I mean, I try to remind myself this a lot because obviously before I started my channel, and my wife is wonderful and is the most supportive person in my life. Like no matter what, she is the reason I'm in school to become an elementary school, believe it or not.
Wow.
But
Great.
I had a discussion with her before I started my channel, and I told her, "Hey, babe, I think I'm gonna do this, but it's gonna be time consuming. Are you okay with that?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Yeah, of course." Because one of the biggest things, my daughter is, I know you've got some daughters that are older than mine, but my daughter is 8 and I want to spend time with her. This is a very crucial age where I feel like I'm on the cusp of her not quite wanting to hang out with us all the time anymore.
Yeah, that's a nice
And
way to put it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
um and so I didn't want this to ever come in between spending time with them or come before spending time with them, and it doesn't. And the other thing is, I think that you and anyone else that has a booktube channel, besides maybe two or three people I can think of, did not set out to start a channel to quit my day job. This was never ever about making money or supplementing my income. It was just simply because I love books and I had found a group of other people in the world that love books and I wanted to talk to them about it. And so I try really hard to not get caught up in this video only got this many views, I lost subscribers, and it's impossible to not see that stuff just because of the way the YouTube Studio app is set up. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
ultimately, that stuff, that's not why I make videos. I'm not trying to make videos to get clicks. I just want people to interact with my content and
Yeah.
so I can have more people to discuss books, with. And, so whenever I get into that crazy mode where I'm in school and I'm working and I'm reading and I feel like I have to make a video and I haven't made a video for 2 weeks and I just have to like take a breath and be like, it doesn't matter. Like
Right.
I will get to it when I get to it. I will read when I want to read what I want to read and I have friends here that'll support me no matter what. And that's really ultimately what it's all about for me. And
Yeah.
this whole thing was kind of a let's just see what happens. I'll put a video out and let's see what happens. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. I think that's healthy, actually. I mean, there are people who make a living from their YouTube channels and they are under some, like everyone is at a job, they're under pressure of a sort. If it is your bread and butter, you do have to be very strategic about what videos you make and what videos you don't make. you, in a way, there's a lot more freedom to being a small booktuber where the consequences are minimal for whether or not a video succeeds, right? I mean, you don't, I want to be like that myself, and I have been during the lifetime of my channel. I make videos that not many people watch at all, and I make them because, and I know ahead of time, yeah, nobody's going to watch this, but I want to make this video, and I don't have to be concerned about its performance, if because I'm not doing this for a living, and thank goodness, because I would be in big trouble if if this were my main income. I would be in big trouble. So, but yeah, no, it's something I think that you can easily get swept up in those numbers, though. And it's something that I've consciously stayed away from. I'm not really a numbers person to begin with. And I know some people love to talk about, statistics from the channel, and here's how many views we got and how many, and from small channels to big channels. I know lots of lovely people who do that, and I have no problem with that. But for me, if I got too focused on that stuff, I would find it sucking the joy out of the experience. And I don't want this to be for numbers. I want this to be for the interactions, like you said, which, I find very enriching. So that's how I feel about it. And I will continue to make videos that I know people are not going to want to watch. I make reviews. I make deep dive discussions into a specific book, and that you very limited audience for that right now. And ironically, they call it BookTube, but really, the reviews are, I don't know if they're going extinct or not, but that's probably a bit drastic. But there aren't, at least in the short term, a way to get views or grow a channel or something like that. You have to do top 10 this, or you have to do, something a little more catchy with the thumbnail, worst book of the year, or, I personally don't also like to go negative myself. I don't make the videos where I'm talking about books I didn't like so much, because that's just not what I want to do. I want to talk about the stuff that I really enjoyed, and hopefully maybe help other people enjoy those things a little more. But yeah. So I totally agree with you on that, on the idea that we're here for fun. We're here to enjoy and supplement our reading experiences. Because prior to having a YouTube channel, I would read and I'd get to the end of a book and I'd be like, wow, that was awesome. And then, crickets, because there's nobody to talk to about the book. I didn't know anybody out, in my life who was interested in fantasy, outside of my students in my classroom. So yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great,
and the uh the worst and best part about being a fantasy fan is it's usually the third or fourth or fifth or sixth book where you're encountering some mind-blowing things, and I can only talk to my wife who's not read this series
yeah.
so much about how much my mind is blown because she she can't possibly empathize with where I'm at emotionally if she's not read the series. So
Yeah.
it's great to be able to hop into a Discord or watch a video about the book I just read and be like, "Oh my gosh, this was amazing," and have somebody be like, "I know, I remember that."
Yeah, yeah. So you're active on Discord, I guess, because you've mentioned it a couple times, and which I because I'm not, and I feel slightly bad about that, but there really just is no way I could do all the stuff I'm doing and be active on Discord. I just can't. I don't have time, unfortunately. I would love to be there chatting with people in that way, but I just don't have any more time for another social media platform at all. I putter around on Twitter, I do the YouTube, but I'm trying to get some writing done, and I make these videos. So I just don't feel like I honestly don't. I have a family, and other things, and a full-time job. Oh yeah, yeah. So I
Right.
just don't. But tell me about Discord and what you love about it, and what's the appeal, and where are you active on? Are you part of a Discord? Are you part of it, like because there's several channels out there who are kind of like co-owners of a Discord or something like that, right? Are you one of those?
Yeah. So my first Discord experience a- actually was from years ago. I would use it for gaming.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
using it for game chat, like voice chat.
Yeah.
So I had always kind of been familiar with how Discord operated, but when I found Jimmy's channel and Mike's Discord is
Yeah.
free to join. Jimmy's, once you become a supporter through Patreon, you get access to his Discord.
Right.
And, and Jimmy's Discord community is pretty tight knit and in there for almost 4 years now, I think. And I mean, guys like Kev, I don't know if you are familiar with Kev. Kev, I've been talking to Kev about books for years, and Jimmy's in there and he's responding, and like Derry, and there's certain people that I just feel like I've virtually gotten to know
Yeah.
in Discord. They're excited that I'm starting A Song of Ice and Fire or
Uh-huh.
Robin Hobb, and there's just kind of the really cool thing about it is that there's people from all over the world in some of these bigger Discords.
Yeah.
So there's kind of always somebody awake that you can talk to about books. And
Mm.
that allowed me to kind of feel like I was being folded into the community, and it helped me ease my anxiety about wanting to start a channel. And um, I saw some other people in like Jimmy's Discord that I was familiar with that hadn't had a channel when I met them, and they started a channel.
Huh.
And like
Yeah.
Alex from Tall Guy Reads, I remember him
Yeah.
starting his channel, and a couple of other guys, and I'm like, I've been talking to these guys for a while about books. If they can do it, then why not me?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
kind of helped me to like feel more comfortable getting out there. And there were some people that I became really close with early in my booktube journey that were also class of 2023 booktubers. And Dan, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Dan from the Black and Blue Collar Reader.
Oh yeah, I know Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was Dan's idea. He's an idea man, Dan is.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, why don't we start one of those joint Discord servers?" And so like 10 of us were like, "Yeah, let's do this." And so we all kind of we used my server, but I gave all of them like admin responsibilities. So we all kind of contribute and bring more people to the Discord, and it's nice because all of us in there makes it feel less daunting to have to interact with everybody, because there's always kind of admins in there carrying on conversations in different threads.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to be everywhere, and it's just kind of another way to get to know people in the comment section a little deeper.
Which Discord is it?
It's called An Unexpected Party, actually,
Oh, an
inspired
unexpected.
by The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. An unexpected. That's a great name for a Discord. An unexpected party. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we have the our picture is all of the hobbits or all the dwarves falling into Bilbo's door.
Uh-huh. That's great. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
now if I had time, I'd be hanging out there too. And there's the Grimoire Discord, I think, is another one that's a sort of a group thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Yeah,
act.
that's like Joanna, Matt on Books is in there. I know Alex is in there.
Yeah, yeah, there's a
I
few
can't
people.
remember everybody that's in there.
Yeah, yeah, I'm terrible with it. So yeah, don't ask me. But I'm always tempted. I'm always tempted. So. But you mentioned some, we touched on a few of the big series that you started, and I want to start talking about those a bit. We talked about Malazan a little while ago, and you and I cannot have this conversation without bringing up Realm of the Elderlings, because that is a series that is clearly resonating with you. So which one do you want to talk about first, Malazan or Realm of the Elderlings?
Well, we can talk a lot about either one, but we'll start with Malazan, because I
Okay.
am very early on in my journey considering how many books there are in the world, but I am really, really enjoying my experience so far.
You are on the third book now, Memories of Ice, is that right?
Yeah, yep, I'm about 500-ish pages in, so I've
Okay.
still got a decent chunk left. I think I've got like 300 pages left, but I'm past the halfway mark.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a doozy. Memories of Ice, in my opinion. I like that. I have a very, I mean, I don't rank them myself, but if I had to rank them, it would probably be in the among my favorites. But yeah, there's a lot of powerful stuff that you're about to encounter. You're heading toward uh, the uh, the business end of the book. Let's put it that way. The
Okay.
convergences are happening, and that's where things get serious in a Malazan book. That's for sure. So what are you liking about Malazan so far? What makes you feel like this could be a series that, and I don't know how much where you would rate it among all your series or anything like that, but it sounds like you are more or less enjoying this experience. So what is it that that is working for you in Malazan so far?
I think there's a lot. So whenever I think this was probably closer to when you had first started your channel. This is when like Jimmy and I think Joanna and a lot of people were reading through the series for the first time.
Yeah.
There was this kind of air around the Malazan series that made it feel a bit intimidating,
Uh-huh.
um, which has definitely become less so, I think, recently. But I think, with Jimmy releasing a lot of reviews and many people that I'm fans of, yourself, AP, having these in-depth discussions about different aspects of the world, and there just became a lot more Malazan content,
Yeah.
and it felt more accessible to me. And I think I started collecting them when I would see the ones I needed at Barnes and Noble because I knew I'd wanted to read it at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that I waited because I hopped on with a group. There's 4 or 5 of us doing a buddy read and having discussions for the books. And I think this is a series that really lends itself extremely well to discussions. Many books do, but there is just so much going on in this series that naturally I just feel like different aspects of the book are going to stick out to different people.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
one of the very first things that drew me in with Malazan was it felt different than any other thing I'd read in that it wasn't following a good guy or a bad guy. It was
Yeah.
just, it felt like Erickson really, really trusted the readers to just be given all the information and to make with it what you will. Like, he's like, here's everything. You, there might be good guys, there might be bad guys, there might be morally gray guys. It might just be a bunch of people trying to navigate this empire, taking things over. But
Yeah.
here's all the information. I hope you enjoy it. And I was like, wow, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very true. It is. I agree with your statement very much that this is a series that is conducive to all kinds of analysis and discussion. AP and I talked about all the books except for The Crippled God, and well, we didn't do a sale either. But hopefully someday we'll do those discussions. But man, you can have hours and hours and hours of discussion, and you'll still not talk about everything that there is. There's just the series is that vast. And it's deep. It's really deep. There are other series out there that are, yes, vast, but I don't think that there are many or maybe any that are as deep as Malazan, in my opinion. So that is, you know, it is cool. I love a vast world as well. I love a big story, but I also feel like Malazan is special in that depth, that it is, and that may be part of the reason why some people feel intimidated. But the fact is, on any given read of Malazan, you're going to get a ton out of it. You may not understand everything. You may not catch on to this or that illusion, or, you might miss, that it doesn't matter. You're still going to get so much out of that read, and it is a series that will reward rereads again and again and again because it's just that much to get in there. So I love that series a lot for its emotional impact, but also its thematic depth. And in terms of thematic depth, I don't think anything quite matches Malazan for me anyway. But emotional depth, Realm of the Elderlings is up there as well, for sure. In fact, it may even slightly outstrip Malazan in terms of emotional resonance. It's amazing. I'm on the penultimate book right now. I'll probably, by the time this comes out, I'll be done with oh gosh, all the titles are also similar. Fool's Quest, I think, is that the one I'm on right now. It's the second book in Fits in the Fool.
Yeah, full
Okay,
quest.
I got it right. And then the last book is Assassin's
Assassin's
Fate.
Fate.
Yes. Okay. There's so many fools and so many assassins and quests and stuff in there that it just it's hard to keep them all straight. But boy, they are beautiful books, aren't they? Now, where are you in Realm of the Elderlings right now?
So I've been chasing you for a while now, but I just finished Dragon Haven, which is the second Rain Wilds Chronicles
Big Miles
book.
Chronicles. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
And
been just what a journey. I mean,
yeah.
what a journey.
So do you have a favorite among the trilogies you've read already? So it's Farseer, Live Ship, and Tawny Man. Which do you feel like you had to choose? You have to rank them. What's it going to be?
Definitely Tawny Man.
Number
I
one?
talked about it. Yeah, I talked about it in I did a review of Tawny Man and my wrap ups. I had talked about Fool's Fate is the first time I ever closed the cover of a book and like definitively knew this was my favorite book I've ever read, like in my life. Um, I
Wow.
make sure to say it is not the best book I've ever read in my life because I don't know if it's the best book I've ever read in my life, but one thing that I've come to realize about especially the realm of the Elderlings is I've kind of grown to a place with it where it's a series that has impacted me personally, emotionally, so deeply. And
Yeah.
I feel that I've resonated so much with these characters that I don't even necessarily feel like I need to scream from the rooftops for everybody to read this anymore because, quite honestly, I'm not entirely sure if this is for everybody. I think there
Uh-huh.
are people that may not resonate with Robin Hobb's writing style in the way that she takes a while to get to the thick of things sometimes, and
Well, in pretty
but
much
that's okay
every
because
book she does.
yeah, I mean
Yeah. Yeah.
it works really really well for me. And I've never felt as connected to a cast of characters as I have with Fitz and the people from
Yeah.
his area of the story. And so I just remember closing Fool's Fate and being like, man, if I think back to the Farseer trilogy and how I could have come up with an absolutely perfect ending, it would have been this. But in no way did I ever think Robin Hobb would get here, and she managed to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just floored by that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I feel like now well, the third book is actually a huge chunker. But if you're just counting my books, I'm almost two-thirds of the way through Fits in the Fool, and I feel like it could legitimately challenge Tawny Man as my favorite of the trilogies. Let's see. I still have to finish that third one. But if it ends the way the first two books have gone, probably will end up my favorite. We'll see. But yeah, Fits in the Fool
That's
is,
crazy.
yeah, it is. It actually is. Because I loved Tawny Man. I was a mess. Uh, Fool's Fate for me actually started exceptionally slowly. Usually that slow burn takes like a couple hundred pages with a Hobb book. Fool's Fate took like 300 pages before I was like, and I was getting a little impatient. I was like, come on, can we please go somewhere? Can we please get on with it? Oh my goodness, that ending just, I felt like I was getting repeatedly punched in the face. I mean, it was just boom, boom, boom. And I was a mess. I mean, it was just tears all over the
Yeah.
place, multiple times. And that's the thing, though. I think you mentioned, this kind of thing is not for everybody. But I feel like a lot of people probably give up before they should with a Realm of the Elderlings book, where and this is partly because I think we live in an era where people want, you click, you get the dopamine, we're in that era of instant gratification, boom, boom, boom. And that's not what Hobb is delivering here. But if you could train your brain to be patient and to realize that this is investment and it's going to have a major payoff, I feel like more people would stick with it if they could understand the degree of payoff that you get at the end of a Robin Hobb book from that initial, yeah, okay, not a ton of things are happening right now in the first couple hundred pages, but just get cozy for a while and enjoy that and feel that investment in the characters and in the place, and that's going to have major payoff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe that's not what people are wanting at the moment. They want a more entertaining, they want immediate explosions and so on and so forth. And that tends to be what sells more these days anyway, I guess. So, but man, I do sometimes feel like it's true. I mean, there are all kinds of stories out there for all kinds of people with whatever, they might be looking for at the moment. But I almost feel, and I hope this doesn't sound patronizing or anything, but I almost feel a little bit bad for people who give up quickly on Robin Hobb, because I'm thinking to myself, oh, but you're missing so much. If you could just stick with it, maybe you it would catch, but who knows? So,
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. And this is one of the benefits that I've found with BookTube is so many people, namely Jimmy, again, Jimmy's inspired me to read lots of things. But seeing him before I had even started the series stick through this and give these non-spoiler reviews where I could just see like the visceral emotions that these books were putting him through
yeah,
helped me to realize that okay, there is payoff here. Like this is a series worth reading, and now that I am what 11 books in,
uh-huh,
uh I can honestly say that this series is one of the fantasy series that has shown me what somebody who is extremely talented at writing can do in this genre. Like
yeah,
what the fantasy genre actually allows somebody who has talent that I will never even sniff, how they can portray such human emotions in a fantastical world and have it feel so incredibly real.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, she is the master at that. She's the queen of characters and character relationships. That is something that I realize right with Farseer. And I also feel like when I do reread Farseer, I'm gonna love it even more than I did on the first read. I think it's one of those things where you go back and you realize, oh, that's what she was doing there. Okay. Or just I also feel like she's a writer who I don't think she knew that Realm of the Elderlings was going to be 16 books. I don't think she actually knew that. I think there were multiple times where she thought, okay, I'm done, and then came back. Like I think Tawny Man was supposed to be the end, right? And then there more came, and then we got Fitz and the Fool later. So I don't think she had planned everything, and yet she's so good at making it seem like it was all planned at the same time. Like it's really surprisingly, even though these are very separate trilogies, and the one tetralogy with Rainwell's Chronicles, they really do supplement each other very nicely. And somehow the later books do change, even though there's no way they could have been planned this way. But the later books do change the way you feel about the earlier books, and that's just brilliant. I love it. So
Yeah, if you were to tell me that this series ended with Tawny Man, I would still put it as one of the best series that I have ever read. Like
yeah,
that ending alone, I think would have been sufficient. But to know that there's more is unbelievable.
yeah, yeah, it's tremendous. And even Rain Wilds I enjoyed, and I think it's fair to say the majority of fans of Realm of the Elderlings would rank it the lowest of the series. So there are definitely exceptions. There are people out there who say, I love Rain Wilds. It's one of my favorites. Great. I enjoyed it myself. I thought it was solid. It was way beyond what most fantasy writers can achieve. So, to me, it didn't reach the same emotional heights as the other trilogies in the series, but it was still a very enjoyable read for me. So I'll be interested to see how you feel when you finish it. You've got two more books in it.
Yeah.
I will say that for me, and this is not universal either, but for me, I got more invested with each book in Rain Wilds as well. So yeah, some very satisfying moments at the end of that tetralogy. So yeah. Cool. What else are you reading? What else is catching your interests? What are you excited to read?
Reading, let's see. I've got a couple here, as we usually do.
Yep.
I'm working my way through this guy
Oh
right
yes,
now.
I have my copy up here. Yep. Yep. I got mine from
It's
Evie.
very unique.
Yeah,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only about 80 or so pages into it. And this is probably the first book that I've hopped on the hype train so early on.
Uh-huh.
Because lots of people are loving this book right now, and I tend to maybe not be as Alan about it, but I tend to
Uh-huh.
try to let the hype die down a little bit, simply because it helps me to be a little bit more objective about what I'm reading.
Uh-huh.
Like, is this really this good, or am I letting the kind of noise hype me up a little bit? And then sometimes I let the noise hype me up a little bit and I'm severely let down. So I tend to let it cool out a little bit. But this I'm really, really enjoying so far. So I'm working my way through this. I am working my way through Memories of Ice, and I'm also reading The Dark Half by Stephen King because my sister, she read it. It took her about a year to do it, but she finished it
Okay.
and she really loved it. And so she started collecting some King books from thrift stores, and there's many King books that I have not read yet. So we kind of started a very loose read along where we arbitrarily pick a number of chapters to read, and we'll try to use it as an excuse to stay in better contact and discuss some more Stephen King
Nice.
books. So
Great. Yeah.
that's what
Bonding.
I'm working with right now.
Nice. Well, that's a lot of stuff to have on the docket and very enjoyable stuff too. Yeah. Are there any big series in the future that you feel like you're going to be picking up that you're excited and to be covering, or is there any? You said you're more of a pantser, so that might not be the case. But
Yeah, I try to do the TBRs because it helps me to actually get to the stuff that I really want to read and not just be the little kid in the candy shop that picks up the next, big thing. But this year I had a video where I released my top 10 most anticipated reads, and part of what I mentioned earlier is I'd like to branch out a little bit more, not because I'm not enjoying fantasy, but just because I want to try to challenge myself to become a better reader. So I've
yes.
got some different things. I want to start the Expanse series, Red Rising. I want to do a really slow read of Crime and Punishment because
Uh-huh.
I don't read a lot of classics, and I think that that would challenge me as a reader. Um, I want to read In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Just throw
Ah,
some different stuff in there. So I want to try to just switch some things up and see how I feel, and um, obviously continue with Malazan, continue with Realm of the Elderlings, and for fantasy, the series that I want to start but I will not finish is Senlin Ascends,
oh, cool. Yeah, Books of Babel.
the
Yeah,
Books of Babel. Yeah,
yeah. I read
you
that.
recently finished that, right?
Yeah, read it last year. Loved it. Absolutely loved it, including the fourth book. So I'm in the camp that loves the fourth book.
Okay,
Because some very good friends of ours did not love the fourth book so much, but I'm definitely with Alan on this one. I think it's brilliant, and just it to me, it's actually similar to Dark Tower in not in terms of what happens or even the vibe necessarily, but it's different. It's different from everything else, like the ending of Dark Tower. It's bold. It does something bizarre that you will never be able to predict. It's like Dark Tower in that sense. And I think, like Dark Tower, it left a lot of people kind of puzzled and some people even kind of pissed off because they're like, wait, what? That's not what I want, and sometimes books do that. They don't give you what you want, and you have to think for a moment. I feel, okay, what do I get from this? And maybe I don't get emotional satisfaction the way I wanted, but is this book trying to tell me something, you know, about life, about human experience? And if it is, maybe that's what I can get from this. So this was it was a very cool for me ending to the series. Challenging, I will say, challenging. Uh,
okay. This is one I've had on the shelf for a while that I've kind of been putting off because I feel like it's going to work for me, if that makes sense. It's like
yeah,
I'm not really worried about enjoying this one. For some reason, just from what I've heard about it, I feel like it's a series that will click with me and that Senlin is a character that will click with me.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah. He
I'm
doesn't
excited to
click with
start it.
everyone. A lot of I have seen people bounce off the book saying, I do not like this guy. I'm sorry, you know. But even if you're one of those that doesn't click with Sandlin, it might be worth continuing because there are other characters who become more important as the series progresses. But
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, you won't be able to. Each of the books does something a bit different. It's like Dark Tower in that sense too. Every Dark Tower book was different from the previous one, and that is true of Books of Babel as well. There, you don't think that you know what the series is going to do just by reading Senlin Ascends. It gets each book is different. Yeah, so. But yeah, I like that. I like it when writers are bold like that and do something different and challenge me. And I might not be comfortable all the time with that, but I think sometimes it's good for literature to make you uncomfortable, you know? So
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Well, and then the other big fantasy series I will be finishing probably the first half of the year is your last two books.
Oh
So The
yes,
Prophet of Edan and The Return to Edan.
yes, that little Adan trilogy thing. Yes, yes.
Yeah. I'm
Cool.
so excited to continue with that. I just with Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan and these read-alongs, it's just so difficult to throw in
Oh yeah.
any other books, like
Yeah.
even small ones. And I don't want to start your second book and then take 2 weeks, to get back to the story because I've had to do that a little bit with Realm of the Elderlings and Malazan because I'm in read-alongs with them,
Uh-huh.
and trying to stay on pace with people can be very difficult. There's a lot of people that are 200 pages further than I am in Memories of Ice, so they're
Oh yeah.
slowing down, and then, so it's difficult to juggle everything, but I want to give your Prophet of Edan and Return to Edan my as full of attention as I can.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm glad that you enjoyed the first book, and I hope books 2 and 3 will work for you. Uh, you never know. I mean, I've definitely heard from a few people who say The Way of Dan is my favorite, but the majority of readers seem to feel like that they prefer book 2 over book 1, and then they prefer book 3 over book 2. So book 3 seems to be the more popular for the people who've gotten through the trilogy at least. But you never know.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, thank you. I'm glad you're checking it out, and I hope it's a satisfying read for you as well. So yeah, cool. You're doing lots of good stuff there. But yeah, so I think it's great too, by the way, that you are branching out, and this is a great thing that you can do here on by having a channel, is challenging yourself to expand and going into genres maybe you don't read much of and exploring different places, and that's very enriching. Because a lot of times people do get burned out if you just read fantasy all the time. You might feel like enough. So by varying it, you're going to have hopefully the ability to recharge yourself as well. That's a very good strategy for a reader, I think. I personally have not ever experienced what people call, oh, what is it they say when they don't want to read anything?
Burnout, fantasy burnout.
Not burnout. There's another word for it, or a phrase
Oh,
that
a
people.
slump?
Yeah, it's a reading
I don't
slump.
know.
Yeah, that's it. Reading.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never experienced a reading slump before, but I believe people when
Wow.
they say I'm having a reading slump. But I have just never not felt like reading. There was a certain time in my life when I was in graduate school, and I had to do a lot of reading in graduate school, of course. But I realized at a certain point that I wasn't reading anything for pleasure, just for pleasure. And that was depressing. And I said to myself, I'm going to read, even if it's just like half an hour at the end of the day, something just because I want to, just for pleasure. And I've been able to keep that promise to myself. And I've never felt what people describe. I kind of have to scratch my head and wonder what that feels like. I don't really want to know, but
No.
what is a reading slump? what is this thing that people call a reading slump, Um, I've never experienced it. And for me, I can just keep reading fantasy after fantasy after fantasy. But I do find that it helps me to vary it up. Like I'll read a Malazan book, then I'll read a Dresden Files book, then I'll read a whatever, Realm of the Elderlings. I do get a lot more, I feel, when I mix it up. But never, have you had a reading slump before, Colin?
Yeah, recently I think it was kind of a conglomeration of a whole bunch of things. It happened.
Yeah.
I don't think it was just a reading slump. I think that everything in my life was affected by it because it happened right after my wedding in September, and
Oh, yeah. Okay.
kind of leading up to that, it was bang, bang, bang. This has to be done. This has to be done. This has to get done now. My wife and I were both in school at the time.
Yeah.
Daughter was getting ready to go back to school, and life was just crazy. And then it all kind of abruptly stopped.
Huh.
And I also had read Fool's Fate, which was
Ooh.
just such an emotional roller coaster. And so I just kind of felt like I don't know, everything just kind of that all those emotions were running rampant for months and then it all stopped. So I
So
think I
you
just
were
kind
you
of
were
got a
feeling you were feeling like Fitz after some elf bark tea.
yes, I think so. And I
Oh,
was trying to pick things up, and leading into October, I wanted to read some more horror, and I actually ended up reading a book that I did not finish, and it's the first book that I've DNF'd in a really long time.
wow.
And I just could not get into it and tried some other things. And funny enough, I eventually, Ben, my reading partner for Realm of the Elderlings, was like, dude, you need to pick up Dragon Keeper. That will
Oh,
get you out of your slump.
yeah.
So I did, and I've been back on track ever since then.
Good. Good, good. Yeah, that's Ben from Books with Genghis Khan, right? Yeah.
Yes, and he is one of the ones that is loving the Rainwatch Chronicles. Like it is
Good.
up there for him.
That's
He's
great.
loving it.
Huh. Yeah, he's a smart guy too. So yeah, there's plenty to love there for sure. Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah,
yeah, cool. Well, so slumps end. That's the message I'm hearing here is that even if you do experience one, they do end, right?
they do.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a little kick in the pants from somebody to say, come on,
Yes.
get back on.
Yeah. I think that's kind of natural. I feel like people fall in and out of habits, and sometimes you just need a little break. I guess unless you're Dr.
Yeah.
Fantasy.
I don't know what it is about me. I think I love my ruts is what it is. I love to be doing the things that I enjoy, and I get very focused on the things that I do. Like I play tennis very intensely as well. For a guy in his 50s anyway, I play tennis pretty intensely and regularly. And I think you have to be a little bit of an obsessive type to, for example, write books. You have to be just sort of like super focused on that and keep going, be relentless. That is, I can't say that I feel like I was that I knew exactly what I was doing when I was writing, but I just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, and that is for me the way to get good at something is just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And there are going to be days when you're sitting in front of your computer and you're like, I don't feel like doing this, and you have to just make yourself. And usually, once you get started, you're like, yeah, okay, now I'm in the groove. But sometimes it does take a little extra push to get you into something, I think. So I will say with books, though, I usually start out a book much more slowly than I finish. And that's probably not a revelation, right? I mean, I often find myself more easily distracted at the beginning of a book than at the end. When I'm at the tail end of a really good book, please don't talk to me because I want to finish the book. Um,
Yep.
but in the beginning, I'll be like, oh, did I just did I just get a message on Twitter? Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
it's harder to stick with something in the beginning usually. So yeah.
Usually there's a few like the Spear Cuts Through Water is I'll give a nod to that as an example, and Piranesi is another one that just from the get-go I was so enamored with just the enigmatic nature of everything that I like needed to keep going. I was like, what is going on here? How
Interesting.
is this happening? What has this character gotten himself into?
Huh.
And some books just that choose to utilize like a just a very unique like writing strategy or style, some of those will hook me right in the beginning and kind of keep me there.
Yeah. Yeah, Piranesi is interesting. I love it, by the way. I think it's tremendous. But I have heard a number of people who have said, "Oh, it took me a long time to get into Piranesi. I almost gave up on it," or and but then I'm glad I stuck with it. So for you though, it grabbed you right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, I was in from the get-go because it was just so different, especially from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Like I had kind of I tried not to compare it to that because I had known it was going to be different, but it was so vastly different from that book that I was amazed that Susanna Clark had the ability to write two so distinctly different books and do them so incredibly well.
Yeah, yeah, hugely talented author. And yeah, I agree. If you had told me these two books were by two different authors, I wouldn't have blinked. So yeah. But yeah, cool. Yeah, I love Piranesi. I read that in 2022, I think. But yeah.
Okay.
And that is a kind of I don't know what to call it, if there's a name for it or not, but there are these books, and it sounds like Spear Cuts Through Water might be one of them. Which makes me think I'm going to enjoy it. But there are these books that are very dreamlike, very surreal, very strange, and often they're standalones too. And I think of like The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman as another one. And I
That's
don't know
the
if
only Neil Gaiman book I've ever read.
would you agree though that there's a similarity between these books? Yeah.
Yes, it's a similar feeling.
Yeah. Very dreamlike, very strange, wondrous, sometimes slightly disturbing, melancholy, I would say, right? And I don't know what to call them, but that's a thing. I feel like there should be a name for these books.
Yeah, and I can imagine as an author, it's very difficult to attain that feeling because
Oh yeah.
it relies a lot on your readers trusting you to get to where you want them to be or where they need to be. Because,
Yeah.
like with Piranesi, you just, for me, I was just like, what is going on here? This is so bizarre. This
Yeah.
world is so bizarre.
Yeah.
How does somebody end up here? Is this real? Is this not real? Is this an imagination? Is this a dream? Like, I had no idea. But to attain that feeling and still keep people in the dark but really interested has to be a difficult thing to do as a
Yeah.
writer.
I would think so. And we're talking about, I haven't read Spear Cuts Through Water, so I don't know about Jimenez as a writer yet. Sounds like he's awesome. But definitely, I would consider Susanna Clark and Neil Gaiman to be two of the most talented writers in the fantasy genre, for sure. Just when I think of great prose, they're on my list, of really talented authors. So you're probably right. It probably does take a lot of talent to be able to sustain that, the sense of mystery and weirdness, and at the same time keeping the reader engaged. Yeah. So cool. All right. Well, what do you see in the future for Colin's Corner? Or are you not worried about that too much? What can we expect? Anything in terms of what do you want to do with your channel? Or do you want to keep doing what you're doing, making friends, talking about books? What's the future if, as far as you can see?
So I'm not like a 14-month forecaster like Mike is, where he
Nobody is as organized as Mike. Yeah, no
I
way.
don't know how he does it and stays on schedule. That's the most impressive part for me is that he stays on schedule for the most part.
He runs a
But
tight ship. That is a
he
big
really
part
does.
of his success. He runs a tight ship. Yeah. Yeah.
He's reliable. But I am, as you said, a pantser.
Yeah.
So I have some general plans. I recently started a live show on my channel called Books and Basketball, where I just find other booktubers who love basketball and love reading as much as I do because I'm a
Yeah.
humongous NBA basketball fan.
Aha.
And
Wait, let me guess. Chicago Bulls is your team.
yes, it is my team.
I cheated. There's a bull over you right now. So,
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. I have fun with that. I structured it like a basketball game. So there's a pregame where we kind of catch up and a first quarter where I ask them the origins of their reading journey and their basketball enjoyment and different things to just kind of keep it. I try to keep it mainly focused on the books a lot because most of my viewers are there for the books. But it was a fun way for me to hop on the discussion aspect of booktube because not that I have anything against this, but there seemed to be just a lot of chat with the booktuber, chatting with Nuts, Dear Doctor Fantasy, which are amazing shows, and that's how I found many of my favorite booktubers that I follow. But
sure.
I wanted to hold off and do something a little different that felt more like me. So I
Cool.
want to continue with those.
So wait,
I'd
I
like
gotta
to get
ask you.
back to doing.
I have not actually followed basketball since the 90s. And that was a good time for the Chicago Bulls, by the way. There was this guy who played for them, Michael Jordan. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, not the actor.
Not the actor. No, 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 the basketball player. He was pretty good. He was pretty good.
I've met him. I've met him.
Wait, you met Michael Jordan, the actor, or the basketball player?
Not the actor, the basketball player. Yeah,
Whoa, how did you meet Michael
yeah.
Jordan? We got to get this story.
My aunt. So I played basketball growing up, and my aunt was somehow or another. She lives in Chicago, and she became really good friends with Michael Jordan's personal driver. And so she had somehow talked to him and gotten me into his basketball camp. So I actually went to his basketball camp in California, and he at the end of the camp does a thing where you basically everybody lines up and he'll sign one thing for you. So I got to shake his hand and he signed a picture for me, which was pretty cool.
So you were looking up. I'm assuming you're looking up at him because I don't know how tall you are, but he's what, 6'5" or something?
Yeah, he's sick in his heyday, he was 6'6". So
Okay. Yeah.
I was a very little middle schooler.
Wow, that is so cool. You got to meet your hero then. Wow.
Yeah, so that my dad has always been a basketball fan. We used to have season
Yeah.
tickets to the Pitt men's basketball team.
Okay.
So I would, go to those games with him, and he tried to, when Michael Jordan made the comeback with the Washington Wizards, we went to see them play in DC and did kind of the sightseeing things of DC, and we ended up seeing them play the Lakers. So I actually had a chance to meet Magic Johnson at one point too, which was
Oh,
really cool. So basketball has always been really important part of my life.
in your blood. Yeah.
Um, in my blood, yeah.
Yeah.
Not good enough to go anywhere with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I accepted that.
Yeah. Well, I have a strange relationship with basketball because my father, who's actually fairly tall, he's 6'2", was a tremendous basketball player. He was a very talented basketball player, and I grew up playing sports with him and never being as good as he was. And so I have a love-hate thing with basketball, and but I haven't watched it in a long time. But how are the Bulls doing right now? Are they do they have are they a good team? No, okay, sorry.
No, they're mediocre. It pains me to say that
Okay.
they are not a contender to win a championship anytime soon. But I still watch them all the time, and might see them play in Cleveland in a little over a week.
Oh wow. Okay, so you are a loyal fan then. That is good.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
With
through
them
thick and
all the
thin.
way. All the way. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. All right. That's good. That shows integrity, my friend. That shows real integrity.
yes.
So,
But aside from books and basketball, I would like to get back to doing some more reviews. I know we kind of touched on this earlier, and I really enjoy doing reviews for a couple of reasons. It's not for the views. They don't really come. Uh, but I will say reviewing a book, because I don't script my videos 100%, but I do like type out a script
uh-huh.
because it helps me order my thoughts. And I don't read off of it directly, but I'll, reference it while I'm recording. And I really gain a lot from just going back and thinking about what this book did, what this author was trying to do, what I took from it,
Yep.
and I try to do a bit of an objective thing in the beginning where I talk about what the book actually does,
Yep.
and then I'll leave the subjective aspect of it to if I enjoyed it or not till later because I don't want my first, opening of a video to be like, I hated this book or I loved this book
Uh-huh.
because
Yeah.
typically that's not why people click a video. They just want to know what the book's about.
Right.
And many of my most impactful relationships and comments that I get are on my review videos, even though it's
Uh-huh.
not as many. It's the people that have read those books, even if I disagree with them or they disagree with me, it's the review comments seem to be the ones where I get that conversation that I was really looking for
Right.
when I started my channel.
Yeah, so the depth of engagement is better sometimes on videos that don't have as broad a level of engagement. Like, so maybe you don't get 100,000 views on this video, maybe you only get 500 views, but those 500 people, a lot of them got a lot from that and they want to engage a little more deeply. So yeah, that's a different type of engagement and a very important type, I think. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, cool. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, Colin. I am so glad I got a chance, the opportunity to chat with you one on one, get to know you a little bit, hopefully, maybe introduce you to some potential new subscribers out there. I would encourage everyone to check out Colin's channel, Colin's Corner. There will be, of course, a link in the description. And check out what he's doing there. Some great things. Give him a little support, give him some love for those reviews that he's doing, and other things. And if you're a basketball fan and a book fan, well, you just found your channel, I think. So yeah, because you're not going to hear me talk about basketball, probably, um, unless it's to talk about the trauma from eighth grade when I was on the basketball team, and we won't go there. But anyway, thank you, Colin, for thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast and a day full of discussion about books for me. So it's been awesome.
Excellent, excellent. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.